It's nice because it's almost like a boutique hotel that you're kind of just floating from town to town. Like you sail into these tiny little towns and villages. There's just something magical about being on the river and then waking up with that beautiful view.
Have you been dreaming of travel but not sure where to go or how to begin planning? Well, you found the right podcast.
Welcome to Theme Parks and Passports, the travel podcast for every family ready to explore the world, one destination at a time. I'm Melissa Sanchez, travel addict, wife, and mom of two big kids. Along with planning all my family adventures, I've been helping others realize their travel dreams through my company, Spellbound Vacations, since 2010.
And I'm Heidi Mackey, a travel enthusiast with a passion for geek and pulp culture. I'm also a wife and a mom of a spicy tween. Since 2017, I've been creating vacation memories for families through my business, House of Mackey Travel. Join us as we share stories, tips, and talk to those in the know to inspire your family's next great adventure.
Because creating family travel memories can happen in any stage of life.
Welcome back to Theme Parks and Passports, the podcast that fuels your travel dreams. I'm Heidi Mackey of House of Mackey Travel.
And I'm Melissa Sanchez with Spellbound Vacations.
Today, we're diving into the serene and surprisingly adventurous world of river cruising. It's a travel style that's been gaining incredible popularity. We're so excited to unpack all the details with a true expert in the field.
That's right, Heidi. Joining us today is our friend and En Voyage colleague, Annie Schlegel. Annie is a seasoned travel advisor crafting unforgettable river cruise journeys. Welcome to the show, Annie. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, thanks for having me. I've been in the industry for over 14 years, and I specialize in creating stress-free, unforgettable vacations for my clients, whether that's a luxury beach escape or a European adventure or a river cruise through wine country. I love getting to know each client and building a trip that feels personalized from start to finish. River cruising has become one of my favorite ways to travel. So there's just something magical about being on the river and then waking up with that beautiful view.
Oh, we're so thrilled to have you, and I can't wait to hear all about it. For our listeners who might not be familiar with river cruises, can you paint a picture of what makes a river cruise experience so unique and so different from an ocean cruise specifically, or any other type of holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ships are very small and intimate. So there's no like waiting in long lines or getting lost on a giant deck. You really get to know the crew and all of the travelers that you're traveling with. You also get to really dive into the destination more. Like you sail into these tiny little towns and villages. You get off of the ship and you're just right there. Typically within feet of the ship. So it's such a
Wow.
great way to experience different culture. And it's so immersive and it's so relaxed. Like you do have your excursions that you can do. And you get to choose from a few typically. And so you can kind of tailor what it is that you want to do to your interest and just enjoy. And then even if you want to stay on the ship and relax on the top deck and just enjoy the scenery, you have that option.
The immersive piece is definitely what's like so appealing to me.
Mhm.
And being so close, I imagine Death on the Nile, definitely one of my favorite movies. That feeling of being on the water at the same time, but being so close to everything else, it just seems like romantic.
Mhm. It's nice because it's almost like a boutique hotel that you're kinda just floating from town to town. Like, it's fantastic, it really is great.
And I know you've sailed a couple of different river cruise lines. Can you tell us a little bit about which itineraries you did and on which cruise lines and what you would recommend for, let's say, a first time river cruiser?
Yeah, I have sailed a few different lines. I've done Avalon twice now, which I do highly recommend. I've also sailed on Emerald, which was amazing as well, and then I've also stayed on a Viking ship. So with Avalon, I have sailed now the Rhine and then also the Rhone, and then with Emerald, we did a section of Danube. Um, I mean, typically with river cruising, your classics are going to be the Danube and the Rhine. They're really great for first timers because they include like iconic cities like Vienna, Amsterdam, Budapest. The The Rhone in France is amazing for the food and the wine. So again, it's going to really depend on what your client is interested in doing. Also, the Portugal's Douro Valley is becoming quite popular as well. But I would say if you're going to do one for the first time, I'd probably would recommend the Danube or the Rhine.
Those sound like amazing itineraries. You recently attended the Asta River Cruise Expo. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, the expo was incredible. It was amazing because it brought multiple different cruise lines together in one place that I actually got to tour 16 different river cruise ships from, I think it was 9 different brands that were there.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was an amazing way to just experience all the different, ship layouts, their different excursions, and just some of the differences between each line. It was a great experience.
That's awesome. I love it. And Annie, you and I just cruised together last month on the Avalon Poetry 2 through Burgundy and Provence in France.
Yeah.
Um, that was awesome and fun and amazing. And what are some of the key benefits that you can highlight to those considering a river cruise?
Well, that itinerary was such a dream, was it not?
It was. It was. The
Between the wine tastings in Burgundy and walking through the towns that inspired Van Gogh, and
Mhm.
exploring some of the ruins, like, it was just an amazing, amazing trip. I felt like every day was really packed with history and beauty, and we never felt rushed. Like, it was just
No.
so enjoyable. Avalon did an amazing job balancing them immersive experiences with the downtime, in my opinion. And Melissa, you made a great team when it came to sampling all the pastries and the wine, right?
Oh, we did. I think I had more wine and bread and pastry and French food in that 1 week than I've had in the last year. I swear to God, we ate so much food. But the good thing is we did so much walking around in those medieval cities and the touring that we did that you didn't feel stuffed when you went to bed at night, you
Mhm.
know? You had worked off all that wine and bread and cheese and all the amazing food we ate.
Yeah, it was amazing. And the service on the ship was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely, unparalleled. Although, to be honest, this was my first river cruise, so I don't have a lot to compare it to,
Mhm.
but it was amazing,
It was.
so great.
Yeah, I was having so much fun following you guys on Instagram and on Facebook. I must admit, it was like every single day, what new adventure are you guys getting into? It was a lot of fun to follow you guys that way.
Mhm.
Not to be a creeper or anything, but you know what I mean.
Sometimes
No,
I
that's
think
what
that's
we want
right.
you to do. We want you to follow along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a creeper when you put it out there for that reason.
What about some of the onboard experiences? Because we've talked about docking at the small towns, we've talked about being able to just walk right off the ship and the relaxation, but let's talk about a little bit about like the food, the dining, the dinners at night, and how many courses there actually are.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely won't go away hungry, that's for sure. But it's great because when you come back from town, if you just that's what you decided to do with your time while you were there, you come back, you kinda get ready, and then you have, like, a nice hour to kinda unwind and relax, and you hear your port talk about what you're gonna be doing the next day, a little history about the town, so you kinda know what your options are for that day, and then you go down into the dining room and you enjoy an elaborate dinner. Like,
Mhm.
it's, what do you have? You like have appetizers and you have salads and main courses and desserts, and you get wine and beer with your experience. Typically, on all the river cruises, it's
Okay.
always included. So, you can enjoy some beverages. And you get to sit there and talk to the other people that traveled that day at your table and see what it is they did. Maybe they decided to do a different experience than you. So you can kind of compare notes, if you want to say.
Yeah, and I found that, when we sat down each evening, and as you mentioned, some of the inclusions, m- you're on Avalon and on a lot of other river cruise lines. During dinner, your wine and your beer, as you mentioned, your sodas, those sorts of things, those are included during dinner. So
Mhm.
if you wanted to have 5 glasses of wine during dinner, go for it. I will admittedly between the cocktail hour that included some of the, each evening, just like if you went to a restaurant and there's special cocktails included, between that and dinner, I don't think I spent any additional money on wine when I was on board the ship because we did have the luxury of having that included with our dinner each evening. And it was so nice to, when we were in the lounge talking about the port call the next day and the experiences that we were going to do, talking to the other guests. Annie and I were lucky in the sense that we were early in the season. So I believe there were 89 people on board with us.
Oh,
So
wow.
by the time we left, we knew half the guests' names, they knew us, and we were there with a group, so we kind of stood out a little bit, but it was so nice. I find when I ocean cruise, I don't know the person sitting next to me, like, I don't know what they did, I don't necessarily talk to them, and it felt like it was such an intimate situation where you really got to know the people that you were sailing with, if you wanted to. Obviously, you can keep to yourself if you choose, but if you wanted to, you could be so much more social because there's so fewer people.
Mhm. That's very true. Yeah, it's definitely a nice experience, very different than ocean cruising, like, it's definitely more intimate, and the staff as well, like, till you leave, you will know every single person just about on the staff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
That all sounds absolutely amazing, and I love the food and wine aspect. Can you tell me about other things that are happening on the ship? I imagine not everything that goes on is going to be on shore, right?
That's correct. Yeah, you're right. You'll find that there's enrichment programs like cooking demos or live music. They do usually bring in some sort of entertainment every evening, just about that is, relative to the area that you're sailing through. You also have your destination talks during the cocktail hour, like we mentioned. It's just a great way to hear about where you're going next, the history behind it, and you will hear about the different options for your excursions. With river cruising, your excursions are typically included as well, at least most options. There are some that you can pay for, so you'll just have to decide, if that's what you want to do. But there's other things on board the ship, like there's small gyms, there are yoga classes typically. There are some ships that will offer you spas and actually pools. So it just really depends on the cruise line that you go with as well. There are different things to consider with each line.
So when you're river cruising versus when you are ocean cruising, what's the attire like? Because, when you think about it, on an ocean cruise, you can go into, let's say, Windjammer, for example, in your bathing suit and your cover up and your flip flops. That's not really what we're looking at on a river cruise, are we?
You're correct. Yeah, you won't typically find that. Now, each cruise line is slightly different, again, with their dress code, but you will find overall most of them are very relaxed. I would say, like for dinner, it's more country club casual, is kind of more the vibe, versus on an ocean cruise, you do always have your couple of formal nights where everybody gets really dolled up. You don't have that so much on river cruising. There are some that will come dressed to the nines, and then there'll be some that are just very casual. But overall, the experience is casual. You really want to make sure you pack your very comfortable sneakers or tennis shoes that you can walk around and explore in. But you can leave your fancy tuxedos and your suits and ties at home, to be honest. Like, you really can go very casual.
Annie, can you tell us a little bit about the cabins and how they differ from a typical ocean cruiser?
Yeah, good point. They are much different in a way versus on an ocean cruise. You will see across all the lines. Size wise, they are similar, but you'll find that some are slightly larger and slightly smaller. And it really depends on how many cabins are on board the ships, to be honest. With the cabins, similar to ocean cruising, no, you walk in, you have your beds, you have your areas, but then you have, like on Avalon, for example, you have the panoramic suites, which is just a full wall of windows. So when you go and you open your curtain and you just look outside, it's amazing, especially when you wake up in the mornings on the ship. or in your room, you open your sliding glass door and just let the fresh air from the river just come right in. Like that's your balcony right inside your room. You'll find on some of the other cruise lines, they might have the windows that come down versus opening all the way up. But one of the great things about Avalon, and they are really the only cruise line that does this, they have the beds that face the river. So it literally, when you wake up and you sit up in your bed, that's what you're looking at is,
Oh,
the
wow.
river that you're sailing down. Like it really is an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was. I just want to add with that Avalon, that panoramic suite, where when we were going through the locks, and you could be sitting in your cabin with your panoramic suite open. You don't necessarily want to stick your head out or your hands out,
Right.
but
It is a
you
lock.
yeah, it is a lock, but you can literally like sit in your bed and watch it the ship rise and come out of the lock. It was such a cool experience to have. And there's also, along with the panoramic suite or the cabins that offer the quote unquote balcony type, whether it's the window that comes down or across or whatever it might be, there are some other options that may be slightly more budget friendly, right, Annie?
Yes, yes. You can definitely take a lower room category where you have the windows that are right pretty much at water level. You're never like fully under the water. I think sometimes people get that, perception in their head, but you're not. It's like right at water level and above. But I mean, those are nice. Like the room sizes of those are still a great size. You still have natural light coming in. It's not like an ocean cruise where you're in an inside and there's like no natural lights. Those are a great option for somebody that's looking maybe to, needs to be in a little bit more of on a budget. Definitely would recommend taking a look at that.
Now, that actually also brings up when we're talking about rooms, there are some lines who cater to single travelers too, right?
That is correct. Yes. You do have some cruise lines that will not charge a single supplement. And, they definitely have those options for those solo rooms there for you.
Now, for our listeners who might be thinking about booking their first river cruise, now that we've inspired them, what would you say are some key questions they should be asking their travel advisor?
Well, that's a great question. Obviously, I think you have to have discussion with your advisor about what it is that your interests are, what it is that you're looking to do on the cruise. Is it the scenery? Is it the history? Are you looking for the food and the culture? So those would probably might be where I would start. My next question would be how active is the trip? We talked about things that are included. There are definitely options for some river cruises. Like if you like to be active and go hiking, or you want to do the e-bikes that they have on board, those are an option. So you want to maybe look at a cruise that's not specific to, or that is specific to your activity level and the things that you want to do. What's included? There's some cruise lines that have an all-inclusive plan, and then there's some that include the beer and the wine with dinner and lunch. So those might be some things to ask. Another question might be what's on board of the ship? Is it modern? Is it traditional? Is it relaxed? Is it more formal? And of course, you should always ask your advisor how far in advance you should book. Because to be honest, river cruises, they sell out fast, especially if you're looking at tulip time in Amsterdam,
Oh,
or
yeah.
if you're looking to do the Christmas markets. You definitely want to secure your space early.
So let's touch on what I think is a misconception about river cruising, and that it's only for quote unquote old people. So I felt like when we sailed, there was a wide range of ages on board. I didn't feel like I was cruising with my grandma. There were honeymooners on our sailing. There were people, I would say, probably in their 50s, their 60s, kind of. I will say, kind of more, a little bit more of like that empty nester feel. But what are your thoughts on that, Annie? Do you think it is a misconception, or do you think it kind of leans true?
No, I totally agree. I feel like Empty nester retiree demographic is going away a little bit with river cruising. I feel like it is definitely appealing more to a younger crowd. Your Gen Xers, your couples in their 40s and 50s, even multi-generational families are river cruising. The excursions, like I mentioned, can be super active. The onboard vibe is relaxed, so it's not stuffy. So it's a great option if you love history or culture or even just more of an intimate travel experience. A river cruise is a great option no matter what age you are. And again, with the active activities that they now offer, it can really appeal to anybody, to be honest.
Yeah, I that's how I feel at this point too. I think it really could definitely be open to just about any age group, or at least most of the river cruising lines.
Well, and you'll even find that some lines are family specific. Emma Waterways partners with Adventure by Disney, and Uniworld has a program called Generation Collections, where it focuses on what you were saying, those multi-gen trips, so that you have activities and excursions that encompass multiple age groups and multiple energy levels, I guess, and accessibility. That's definitely also something to be thinking about. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And it's funny, when I was at the River Cruise Expo, it was funny to listen to some of the different cruise lines. Like Riverside does not have an age limit. They've had babies on board.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you really do want to, do a multi-generational trip with your family, I mean, it really could be a great option to see parts of Europe and still have that nice, intimate experience with your family.
That actually brings up a good point, though. You were saying that you said age limit. Can you speak to a little bit about how the different cruise lines deal with their age limit? Because I know that's something big, unlike ocean cruising.
Yeah, so it does vary by cruise line. Like Viking's very strict. It's an 18 and over. You must be an
Mhm.
adult to sail. But Avalon, I think their minimum age is 8 years old. But again, like I mentioned, there are cruise lines and options that if you do have those younger children, they are options that you can take with the cruises. You just have to keep in mind there's no kids clubs, there's no kids rooms, there's no activities specific to the children. So your children have to kind of be a little, you know, easygoing, relaxed, like to, spend time, do things on their own because you're not going to have the kids club to drop the children off.
The museum crew versus the water park crew, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct.
And that's where the something like we mentioned where Emma partners with Adventures by Disney. Like if you're looking for to river cruise, but want that sort of real kind of geared towards family, you're going to look at something like an Adventures by Disney, or you're going to look at that Generations collections from Uniworld, where there are specific sailings as opposed to
Right.
the river cruising in general, where, like Annie mentioned, you're not going to find those specific activities geared towards the kids, whereas you may on an Adventures by Disney or Generations collections or something along those lines.
Mm, exactly.
So, Annie, any final tips for someone who's considering a river cruise?
I would say if you are considering a river cruise, don't wait too long to book. Like I mentioned, river cruises have limited space because you're only looking at 100 to 150 typically. So it's very limited space. And the popular sailings, like I mentioned, do fill up fast, like the tulip time or the Christmas markets. Also, highly recommend that you work with an advisor who knows the difference between the different lines or that can help you decide which cruise is going to be the right fit for you. It really can break or make your trip by working with an advisor. Be open minded. Maybe you start with France or the Danube, but keep your eyes on Portugal or even Egypt for your second or third. It's addictive, so it's a good addiction, but definitely consider booking early.
I'm absolutely willing to get addicted. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. It's definitely inspired us to consider river cruising a little bit more for our next adventure than I would have before.
Yeah, and I definitely can't wait for my next one. My husband was so upset he couldn't come on the one that Annie and I went on together. So, we are already talking and planning. And to our listeners, if you're intrigued by the sounds of river cruising, be sure to reach out to a trusted travel advisor like Annie or Heidi and I to start planning that unforgettable journey. But before we finish, Heidi, let's ask Annie our would you rather question today.
Okay, so Annie, we do a would you rather at the end of each one of our episodes. And luckily, when we have guests, we get more than two answers. So we're super excited to see what you think, especially given the experience that you have on river cruising. So, would you rather a food and wine oriented river cruise like you and Melissa just recently took, or a more adventurous option like Avalon has a Mekong river cruise in Southeast Asia?
Ooh, that's a tough choice. So the foodie in me says wine and cheese in France all day long. But I also have the adventure side in me that is so curious about the Mekong, to be honest. So my choice would be, I think I will do the food and wine this year and the Mekong next year.
I love it. How about you, Melissa?
So, as much as I loved our food and wine, I'm not a huge wine drinker. So, I love the wine I did drink, but I feel like I'm ready for that adventure. Like, I'm ready for that Mekong, and that's actually the one that my husband and I are talking about. And just a little
Wow.
side note, we're looking at the Avalon option. There were only 17 cabins on Avalon's ship that sails the Mekong. It's a small
Wow.
ship, it's intimate. So that's another thing, like, again, sorry, totally going off, like, our question, but that's another thing to think about too, is some of the more exotic river cruises are going to be much more intimate settings. So
Yeah.
just a side note to think about. But what's your thought, Heidi, since you have not river cruised yet, what do you think you'd want your first one to be?
Well, believe it or not, I actually had not looked into the Mekong at all. I
Mhm.
was thinking either France or I had looked into the Egypt one.
Mm.
I have a longtime friend who travels all over the world, and one of the places she hadn't gone to yet was Egypt. And she mentioned it, and I was like, let me see if there's a river cruise. And there happens to be one. Plus, like I said, I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan. So I'm doing a third option and saying Egypt was on my bucket list to do as my first one. But picking between these two, I think I would start with France, but that
Mm.
doesn't mean I'd never do the other one.
Mhm.
Perfect. Perfect. So that's all the time we have for today's episode of Theme Parks and Passports.
Join us next time as we explore another corner of our amazing world. Until then, happy travels. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcast player. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a rating and review.
Check out the show notes for links to Spellbound Vacations LLC and House of Mackie Travel. Until next time, keep living your best travel life.